In this video, I'm going to be showing you how you can clean out your intake manifold, take out all of that carbon and bring back some power loss that you're probably feeling from that heavy buildup. I'm going to be showing you the simple steps I use to successfully do that job. Okay, so first and foremost, this intake manifold is off a BMW. It's off an N47 engine specifically. This is an F10 model, so it's a 2012 that it's coming off. But this process will be pretty much the same for whatever intake manifold that you're using to do this job. If you do have this exact type, I have a video already on my channel. It's just been posted with a step-by-step guide on how to take this out, and the link will be in the description should you want to check that out. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is make sure every component is taken off this. Every clip, every bracket, motor, air intake side. So this is intake pipe, temperature sensor, and we have the air throttle valve there, air inlet valve. That's all removed, and we can clean that separate if we want. This side here, one thing of note, there should be a swirl flap that runs across here. Somebody has deleted off this one, and this is an additional piece that has been put on the actuator or the motor that moves that swirl flap to the side is essentially doing nothing now. But if you have a swirl flap on yours, you just have to spend a bit of extra time cleaning in between those. But again, process is the exact same. Couple of things of note. Seals. If you have seals on them, remove them. If you need to clean in between seals, be cautious, do not damage them. And whatever chemicals you're using, have them either safe for using on seals, like some of the products I have, or if you are using certain cleaners, don't have them soaked on the seals, because they can swell, they can damage them, and essentially you could have a failed job when you put it back together if you do damage any of those seals. So what are some of the basics you could use to clean this out? Oven cleaner is something that I have heard of people using. I haven't done it myself in the past. I've always used certain products, but you may have a successful job and a cheap job by using something that you may already have in your house. That's one way of doing it. One of the other ways is something I have used loads of time in the past is diesel. Submerging inlet manifolds in diesel, allowing the soot to break down, and then getting a brush, like just a bristle slash paint brush, and brushing it through, and then end up flushing it. Very good at cleaning off parts like that. So that's something you could use, and a cheap method. I'm not going to be using it on this one. I do have certain cleaners that I purchased, and here's one of the first products you could use, which is cheap can of Carby cleaner. This isn't a big manifold, so you could do a heavy amount of cleaning with just that can. I do have some of these to run through engines as well, so you spray them in. This is a foaming intake cleaner. This is by Pinrite, and that will break down that soot and help clean up the ports and the valves and all that. That's going to do a pretty successful job in cleaning there as well. Okay, now I'm going to crack into the cleaning. I'm going to be scraping off as much of the heavy stuff as I can. Have a surface which catches all of this stuff. Soot is very, very sticky, filthy, and you can easily ruin an area. So have the area prepped, whether you put down plastic bags or you have cardboard or whatever. Wherever you're doing this, have it in a space that you're not worried about getting things filthy, because everything gets dirty when you're doing these types of cleans. Okay, I've got my container here, gloved up, ready to go. I'm just going to be scraping off this into this as much as possible, and then I'm going to be using cleaners after that. And I'm just going to be continuing to do that all the way across. I'll jump back in with you after I have a large amount of this done, and I can show you how it looks before I put the cleaner on. To give you a bit of a close-up on scraping some of this stuff out, this is one of the tools I use as well, a pick, and I'll try and get you a good visual. So in there, so I'm using the corner of it to pull some of the stuff up. You can see that there. When I'm taking some of the heavy stuff off, I just use a rag to the side to wipe it down, and then the rest gets caught down there as it drops. And you just keep repeating that process until you have all the heavy stuff removed. So I've got all my stuff in the parts tray here. I've got a drip tray. I'm going to be using the carby cleaner. You could use a pressure washer as well if you have something suitable. It's going to be putting stuff everywhere if you do, so I would highly recommend you're in an area that's either not worried about in regards to where it's going to be spraying off, because if this gets on the walls, it's nearly impossible to take off. The things I use at the workshop predominantly would be a parts cleaner, so it has a cleaner coming through it and a brush, and it's very controlled and it catches it all in that bath, and you're able to have the runoff and fresh stuff coming every time, so it's draining and you're getting fresh stuff pumping through. In this case, we just have containers in a drip tray, so I'll be spraying it, then I'll empty the container and rinse and repeat. This is a relatively slow process when you're doing it this way, but you can get it perfectly clean by just taking your time. You can use, again, a garden hose. You could even use a coolant pressurized gun. Those guns I use for coolant flushes. And you can block off certain ports if you want it and pressurize and then release it. Lots of different ways to do these. This is probably the most basic and simple way of them all, and the most easily DIY friendly ones. One other thing I would strongly recommend is using a mask, using like a P95 or a strong mask. I'll get mine and show you. So this is the mask I'm going to be using for it. I'm in a ventilated area, but at the same time you are going to be spraying a lot of this stuff. It's very strong. It can irritate you, gets into your lungs, so use gloves, use protectant. I am on the very last part of this now. I have cleaned this out multiple times actually. It is very time consuming. Do not mistake this for a quick job. If you want to have it decent after you're finished, you're going to have to take your time, soften it, use the cleaners, go back, scrape, and just do the process over and over. But I wanted to take this section of the video before I finish up to just show a couple of the mistakes that I have seen and heard of happening when people are doing intake cleaning. So after you soften all of that stuff down, like you can kind of see some of the results I have now, they're much cleaner. There is still some in there, but overall we have a huge difference in it. What I would advise doing before you put it all back together is to actually blow out all of this. As you soften down all that carbon, as that soot buildup has been broken down so extensively, you certainly don't want clumps to fall into your engine and cause an issue with valve sticking. So I'll just show, even after all my cleaning, there's still heavy chunks coming out. And you can see over here where I scraped some of it and wiped it on a rag. I have used about 10 different rags gathering it. Also make sure wherever the seal is that it's perfect. You want to have that all cleaned off. I have to do a little bit more on it, but where that seal sits, you need to have it immaculate. You do not want any sludge or dirt in there, which could cause an issue when you put it back on. And that is pretty much it. I have this one cleaned out as well, which again is much better. And we have the air intake valve cleaned out also. So a major difference from one to the other. I'll do a couple more passes on this. I will then blow it all out so that there's no little chunks in any crevices that could potentially fall out and go into the engine afterwards. So blow out each individual one, go into areas that might have some of the loose bits built up or caught in. As this has broken down, it still is sticky. This is a very high temperature area, so it is extremely stuck on. And the last thing I'll say on this before I get on to the engine side of cleaning is to set your expectations to be realistic. You're not going to get 100% of all of those carbon deposits off. You're looking for a vast difference from when you started to when you put it back on after cleaning, but don't expect to get it all out. If you're using a professional type cleaning method like an ultrasonic cleaner or walnut blasting on the engine side, etc., then you would expect the best results possible, but you don't have a new intake manifold, so don't expect everything to be out of there. The other thing I'll say is make certain that any loose deposits or carbon buildup that you have softened down is blown out before that manifold goes on. If you don't do that and you put the manifold back and then it gets sucked into the engine, all of this work could be for nothing and you could have damaged the engine. It could be in a worse position than when you actually started. And lastly, don't expect those cleaners, whether you buy expensive ones or you have cheap ones, to completely remove everything. They just soften them down and you're still going to have to scrape the carbon off and use brushes and use different type of cleaning methods to take the rest of it off. They're just an aid, but they're not going to just remove it and you're going to flush it and it's going to be off. And now that the intake manifold is as clean as I need to get it, it's come out pretty damn well. I'm happy with it. It's ready to go back on the vehicle. I've also cleaned out those components as well, and they're ready to go back on. I just have to focus on the engine side. Now on the engine side, again, it's pretty straightforward. Use something around the area so you don't drop any of this dirt down onto your engine. Keep it as clean as possible, so rags or some plastic laid down. And only a couple things you need to be concerned about. One, and the most important, is to have the valves closed. So when you're working on each cylinder, go one at a time, have it closed. You do not want anything falling into the engine that could cause damage. So that is number one, first and foremost. How you do that on this engine is crankshaft pulley is down there, E12, and I have a 1/2 inch which I use to rotate it round, and I have the valves closed on that one. Second is I'm just going to do all the scraping first, so I'm going to use screwdrivers and possibly a bristle brush and have all that cleaned as much as possible before I use any cleaner. Reason being is I'm going to use a electric vacuum, and I do not want to have any flammable materials like carby cleaner or anything like that in around there as I'm using electric equipment. I'm the same with my electric tools around fuel tanks. When I'm doing in-tank fuel pumps, I don't tend to use them at all, just for the risk of some spark happening. So the two things I use after a clean like that will either be my air shop vacuum, or I'm just going to be using the air line to blow it out and having a rag or something down there to catch as coming out. And you just keep scraping that out until you're happy with what you have left. First round of scraping off the carbon is done. I've just got the vacuum here and I'm going to be pulling out as much as I can that has fallen in. I'll probably get, so this is just a normal attachment onto it, I'll probably get a hose and tape it on the top so I can get right down there and take out as much as possible. Just made up this attachment, taped it on to the top, and I'll be able to go down into the ports and suck out as much as possible. You just want to make sure you have a decent bit of diameter there so it doesn't just keep getting clogged all the time. So I hope that's wide enough but yet narrow enough to go down as far as I want. Okay, so I'm happy enough with that. I'm going to spray in here now and then I'm going to start using a brush to clean it up. I have sprayed Carby Clean in there. It's hard to see, but I've sprayed it in. You can kind of see it's cleaning. And I'm going to be using this brush down in between to help take out as much as possible. Then I'll blow out those when I'm finished and have a rag behind it and just see what it's like. And it's just keep repeating that until you're happy with the surface area. I have cleaned it out, I've let it soak as well. And we have, you can see there, a pool down the bottom. And same on that side, which can tell you that you have successfully kept the valves closed. You have a good seal, which is keeping that pool of cleaner down there. I'm now happy with how that is. I'm going to be using my airline and blowing that out. So I'm going to be taking all the remainder of that stuff out. So that's one cylinder done. I'm now going to repeat the process all the way along. I'm going to tape up this one so that nothing blows into it as I'm moving along. So tape this up and then I have to close the valves on cylinder 2 and we'll follow along that process. I have another one done now pretty much and it's looking reasonable all the way along. I'm not going to be able to get everything out of it with the way I'm doing it, but I am very happy with how it's coming along. I'm now going to seal that up and I'm on to 3 and 4. I'm not going to show 3 and 4, I'm just going to get them done and then it'll be fit back after that. Okay, I'm now at the stage where I'm happy with all the cylinders. I've used some 3M Scotch-Brite to just clean off where the intake manifold seal will go, so we can see that's all cleaned up. Just pulled in on the road test now on this BMW and everything is running good, thankfully. I'm 8 Ks into it. I'm going to do another 8 or so Ks in this. There is a triangle on the side here, but that's just to do with the date and time with the battery disconnected. Drivability wise, it is definitely running faster than what it was pre-repair, so that is a success as well. And I left the vehicle idling for quite a long time and checked around all of the items I had disconnected, also the seals with the air intake valve going on to that intake pipe. You never know when you have things stripped down, and when you put them back together you could have leaks. So I just wanted to check all that areas and thankfully everything is all good.
Nothing overly complicated with this one. It just takes a decent amount of time when you do it that DIY way. If you have professional equipment like a walnut blaster or an ultrasonic cleaner or ice blaster or chemical bath parts washer, all them things, it will speed up the process in one stage or another. And having the ability to do it yourself by doing these steps means that you have to allow enough time. You have to be cautious, making sure the valves are closed and not leaving any big chunks on the top of the valves when you go to start the engine. So you have to have it all blown out and cleaned out before you commit to putting the manifold back on. But once you do that, you'll be good to go. There's nothing else to be overly concerned about if you follow the process of putting everything back together again. And that is it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful and informative. If you did, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.